Let's try that together. I believe we shall overcome someday. Okay, we'll start from the beginning. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, yes, in my heart, I believe we shall overcome. Let's keep repeating that. We shall we're gonna overcome hatred. We shall overcome. We're gonna overcome our indifferences. We shall overcome. I believe. Let's try that together. I believe we shall overcome someday. Okay, we'll start from the beginning. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, yes, in my heart, I believe we shall overcome. Let's keep repeating that. We shall we're gonna overcome hatred. We shall overcome. We're gonna overcome our indifferences. We shall overcome fear. We shall, everybody say something. Overcome hatred. All right. We shall overcome poverty. We shall overcome separation. We shall overcome indifferences. We shall overcome racism. We shall overcome. We shall overcome injustice. Oh, we shall overcome someday. Oh, yeah, we will someday. And we're gonna do it one more time. Oh, we shall overcome. Oh, we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday.
Welcome to the Woody Creek Community Center in Woody Creek, Colorado, a last bastion of freedom in America. The Woody Creatures who are here will all celebrate freedom in the name of Martin Luther King Jr. This is his birthday celebration, and we are going to read from his I Have a Dream speech that he gave August 28, 1963, 50 years ago. This is 2013. And we're going to read excerpts that show his resonance to a higher truth. He asked for the end of racial injustice, but he asked for bigger truths. He asked for something bigger. And we're going to read excerpts from that to set the stage for this evening. And some of our audience is going to read those excerpts. Emily, who's just in from Atlanta, Georgia. She's from Atlanta, and she was in
Martin Luther King's hometown.
Martin Luther King's hometown, and she just flew in today, and she's the manager of the Woody Creek Community Center, and she is here because of Woody Creek's resonance to freedom.
We have come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of this moment.
Hear, hear. A word for the now. Our friend Barry Chapman, who is our musician and our voice of freedom.
Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers and sisters, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone.
Thank you, Barry. And that speaks for oneness. And next we have Jill White from Manhattan, who just came in from Manhattan.
I still have a dream. It's a dream rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough spots will all be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see this together. This is our hope. This is our faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we shall be able to hew out the mountain of despair into a stone of hope. With this faith, we shall be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that one day we will all be free.
So that speaks of faith, faith in a bigger picture.
Okay, Rita, can you move to your right a little bit? Thanks.
This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with a new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the cavernous slopes of California. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to sing and to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men and red men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last.
Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Thank you so much, Rita. And that speaks of freedom for all people. And Martin Luther King had this vision for all of humanity. And we're gathered here tonight to talk about our book, Andrew's and my book, The Trust Frequency, 10 Assumptions for a New Paradigm, in which we are sharing an understanding of the conscious, loving nature of the universe that will take us into a reality where this dream can come true.
One thing I'd like us really to recognize is that speech, the excerpts we were just hearing from Martin Luther King's famous speech known as I Have a Dream, was 50 years ago this year. This is 2013, and that was 1963. And in that 50 years, we've come so far. We've come such a long way. We've lost a lot. We've lost the Kennedys. We've lost Martin Luther King himself. It seems like it's been a really tough time, but think about how much progress has been made. In 1963, I was living in South Africa under the cloud of apartheid. That's gone. It's still not a just country. It's a very, very confused and difficult country, but nevertheless, apartheid as an official governmental policy is gone. The Cold War is over. The Berlin Wall went away. We have the women's movement. We have the environmental movement. There's been such an awakening. It goes on and on. I'm certain that I cannot list them all. We, as white Westerners, are finally looking at the indigenous people of the world and realizing what they have for us, the extraordinary wisdom of Homo sapiens. In the last 50 years, I think we have woken up enormously, and we're just at the beginning of a great awakening, which is what our book's about.
Yes, and our book brings in the indigenous way of knowing. It combines the quantum science that's proving that scientifically that indigenous way of knowing is real, is the true nature of the universe. And that has to do with our interconnectedness, our oneness. And this is what Martin Luther King refers to when he talks about all of God's children, and that the destiny of the white men and women are connected to the destiny of the black people, that we're all interconnected. And it goes, the quantum science has brought it to even a deeper level, that we're not just brothers and sisters as Homo sapiens. We are one consciousness. We are one consciousness with the entire universe. All of the things, animate and inanimate, are connected to us and are conscious. And what we're bringing to the table is that it loves us, that all of creation loves us. And we live in a conscious, loving universe.
And I would continue with what I was saying earlier and remind us that this is January 21st, 2013, Today was the second time in history that in the United States of America we have inaugurated a black president. It's an extraordinary moment on Martin Luther King Day.
Exactly. And so you were going to bring in the different ways of seeing the world.
Yeah. Well, okay, think about preparing for this evening. I was thinking, okay, we had Martin Luther King was a very powerful voice for a very important social change that was needed. The change that was based on the color of our skin. The fact that I have white skin means that I am somehow different from someone who has red skin or yellow skin or brown skin. And, you know, that is understandable and yet nonsensical. And there are many, many other understandable yet nonsensical beliefs that are deeply held in aspects of our culture that I personally think need to change. And at the very, very core of all of that is what I call cosmology, the way we understand the universe. How do we understand the cosmos? There are three fundamental cosmologies. One is, we can call it the religious one, and I realize that's generalizing. One we can call the scientific one, and one we could call the integral one. The religious one, certainly the Judeo-Christian Islamic cosmology, is based on this concept of a distant patriarch. Somewhere way over there in heaven is God, who is a male entity with a beard and angels around him, who is certainly not here, who is sort of looking at us, watching us, judging us, loves us, but. So what's that big but? Interesting. That's one cosmology. An awful lot of people seem to believe that. Then we have the scientific approach, which came from Newton, Descartes, Darwin, that denies all of that. That's nonsense. That's absolutely, humans created that. It's all made up, and don't believe a word of it. We're not going to believe anything unless we can measure it, unless we can prove it, unless we can look at it, photograph it, get colliders going in Switzerland and smash things into each other and do experiments and see the results. Science is going to save us. Science is going to be it. And that has resulted in a very different cosmology for those who believe in that. So in a certain sense, our species has split. It's taken these two forks. Now, neither of these paths is the ultimate picture. Both of them are exceedingly limited. Science looks at a little tiny fragment of reality, says this is all there is. Religion looks at something that some people made up a long time ago and says, no, this is all there is. Fact is, you can wrap both of those into a much bigger picture, into the cosmology of the integral spirit. The fact that this universe is, and quantum science is proving this universe contains all of that in every imagination every human ever had, every story everybody ever made up. But those limiting stories that have resulted in what we see as the problems in society in the world today, you can trace them directly to those religions and to those scientific so-called paradigms, those pseudo-scientific excuses for the way humans have tended to behave. There is a new wave coming, and it's the wave of integral spirituality.
Which is David Corton,
Which simply, if you want to name names, David Corton is probably the great articulator of this. Just check him out, look him up.
So, one of our hypotheses is that when humanity adopted the scientific paradigm, it actually split itself. It split its psyche in two parts, basically, and ignored a huge part of its being. And this resulted in this situation we have now, which is the split human that is afraid of its higher self, its divine self, that piece of intuition that if one acts according to one's intuition and according to spirit time, is not in sync with the left brain society that we've produced, one loses out in this society that expects certain things. So we've separated ourselves, we've negated aspects of ourselves, which has led to dis-ease, dysfunction, and all of the ills basically that plague us. And we're saying that when one takes what David Corton talks of as the integral spirit approach, this holistic approach that we're calling the conscious loving universe, that when we understand how loved we are by all of creation, that we came here as a soul, we agreed to come here on a journey to wholeness, and we gave the loving energies on the planet permission to take us on our journey to wholeness, and that circumstance is our guide on this journey to wholeness, that there's only love, that we are so loved by all of creation unconditionally, which means that we get everything we ask for. That's how loved we are. And when we understand that, the unconditional nature of the love that drives all of creation, when we understand that and we look inside and look at our fundamental assumptions about the nature of the universe, when we understand that those assumptions actually are our requests to these loving energies on the planet, that they are not only our verbal requests, but they are our vibrational requests, that they each have a frequency, that every thought has a frequency, and that when we think a certain thought, we send that thought out to the universe, and it can only give us that thought back to us. So if we believe in scarcity, if we believe there isn't enough, we get scarcity. We have to. It has to create that for us in our lives. And it's not only that we get that scarcity, but we put ourselves in a vibratory frequency where there is scarcity, where scarcity is very real. So if we don't understand this, if we don't understand that we have the free will to change our frequency, move ourselves up into the frequency where abundance lives, where that's the true nature of the universe, where the concept of scarcity isn't even a concept. When we realize that we have the tools within us to move ourselves into this frequency, when we understand that in the higher frequency there is more abundance than we can imagine, then we move ourselves there and we move out of scarcity. But as long as we really have a fundamental assumption that there is scarcity in this world, that's all we can experience. So we are bringing this construct to the table because we believe that the only way we're going to realize the dream of Martin Luther King, of John Lennon in Imagine, of the founding fathers of America who dreamt for humanity that we would operate from this higher place in society. We would bring about a society, a government of people, by the people, for the people. It's only from this higher frequency, this higher reality, that any of these dreams can come to pass. And that's what we're bringing with this book and with our 10 assumptions.
So thinking about Martin Luther King's speech and what he was looking for there, there was a situation that he was looking to correct. And what we're looking to do with our work and with this book is to go really, really deep into the source, the cause, the core of those social situations, that belief system that caused that erroneous set of assumptions that has created the current paradigm. And we desperately need a new paradigm based on an integral concept, which is integral simply means it integrates everything. Everything is included. It's not exclusive. It's not this way is the only way. It's not that's it. And that split we were talking about, I'd like to invite anybody who'd like to walk over there at some point and look at the Healing the Split in the Human Psyche. That is a 4x8 foot banner that we used for a presentation at the Science and Non-Duality Conference in California back in October last year. And it kind of tells the whole story. So I think if you have the time to have a look at that, starting from the left, it'll take you right through it. All of the 10, so we're offering these 10 assumptions for new paradigm. Just saying, okay, paradigm's composed of assumptions. The current paradigm is based on some assumptions which seem to have problems with them. So let's look at them. Let's go into our own personal beliefs, individually and collectively. Look at these beliefs, see where they came from, where we got them. My feeling is that I got most of my core assumptions by the age of 3 or 5 years old. I got them from my mom, from my parents, from my society, from my friends. They come to us very early and they get buried in our subconscious where they're extremely powerful. These kinds of beliefs such as the neighbors are dangerous, so we've got to arm ourselves against the neighbors. These beliefs that I'm not good enough, these beliefs that there's not enough to go around. The list goes on, and it's not true. It's honestly not true. So if it's not true, let's get that stuff up and out of there. Let's root it out and dump it and recycle it. Who was saying earlier on the compost it. Thank you. And let's replace those ideas with some other ideas. They're only ideas, they're only mental constructs. So instead of it being the cold, lifeless universe that contemporary science paints this picture of, this clockwork mechanism called the grand machine. It's all just a big machine. It's not alive. It doesn't know you exist. It doesn't care about you, so behave however you like. It's a great excuse for the kinds of behavior that we see in the world. Pick up the newspaper, you'll see it. That's it. Let's flip that. Just let's take that one and say, what if it's instead of a lifeless, uncaring universe, what if it's alive? What if it's conscious? What if it loves us? And what does that mean? And just by flipping that, it's huge. I mean, if you go back 5,000 to 6,000 years to the Vedas from India, you'll find that's how they describe the universe. Because it really is. It's closer to reality than the stuff we were taught in high school or college.
And when we know that we're desperately loved by all of creation, our heart starts to open. We start to know that when we walk out the door, that tree is not going to fall down and kill us. That tree is actually there because it loves us, because it wants us to have oxygen. It wants us to have shade. It's conscious and it wants us to thrive and be well, and it's there for us because it loves us. So it's been requested that we read the 10 assumptions and give this construct in its entirety. So shall we do that?
Sure.
Okay. What this construct consists of is definitions and assumptions, and it's an entire construct. And we ask that people take the definitions and the assumptions as absolutely true, as an exercise. Because if one doesn't take this as absolutely true, it doesn't work in your thinking process. If one says there's only love, you have to say there is only love. Absolutely, there is only love. Then things get transformed. If you say there's only love, but then there's hatred, and there's this and that, and there's all this war and all this famine, and so obviously there's only love some of the places, some of the time. So to have this work, to transform one's thinking and one's being and move one into this frequency, one has to take this as absolutely true for the exercise. We don't care what you do after you do the exercise, because we're not saying this is dogma. We're not saying it is absolutely true. We're saying take it as absolutely true
And see what happens.
and see what happens.
Because it's transformative.
Because it's
totally
absolutely
transformative.
true for me. I have to tell you. I live my life by this. I will die by this. You have to walk over that line where it's worth dying for, because you know that if you step over that line, it's a good day to die. That is very indigenous, that it's all good, and you've got to live there. You've got to be there. So here are our assumptions. And they are...
Are you not starting with the definitions? And by definitions,
that's
we
what I
mean
meant.
certain words, certain terms that we use in a very specific way. So it's really important. If you were simply to jump in and read the assumptions, you might misinterpret our meaning, because words can have different meanings to different people. So we're very specific about what we mean by these specific terms.
So, an assumption, a core belief which we take to be true without question. So we're offering 10 new assumptions, a core belief to be taken without question for the exercise. Okay, a paradigm is a set of agreed upon assumptions which create a consensus reality. That's what we live in. We live in a consensus reality. We have agreed that such and such is true. That Darwin said it's competition, it's survival of the fittest, and we take that as absolutely true. And we teach our kids that in school, and we go into business and we behave in that manner because we've accepted it. We challenge that.
You
Okay.
can change that.
Okay. Do you want to read any of these?
Sure.
Humanity now this is very important. This is key. Humanity is a collection of divine, autonomous, sovereign beings who have chosen, this is free will, to incarnate on earth to learn and grow on their soul's journey to wholeness, each with an individual purpose and a unique gift. So this is the overarching act of free will, that when we incarnated, we said, yes, loving energies, take me on my soul's journey to wholeness. Make me one with all that is. I want to become one with all that is. I want to know that I am divine. I am part of the source. Take me on that journey. So this is a very key piece of the overarching act of free will. So the next one is
One of the most misunderstood words in the English language, love. How about this? The fundamental unifying and creative force of the universe. Frequency, the vibratory rate that determines the characteristics of a particular reality. There's a wide range of frequencies, each with its own reality and its own distinct laws. And the trust frequency,
the trust frequency is where the soul's destiny awaits, with more abundance, balance, freedom, and joy than we can fathom. You see, we came in to a lower frequency. We've been conditioned to think that the rules in the lower frequency are the laws set in stone. Well, in the trust frequency, in these frequencies, we've said each has its own reality and its own distinct laws, meaning that the laws that we see as immutable in this reality are not. They're only immutable in this frequency. So we have the free will, which is the next definition. The free will is the right to choose one's frequency. So we have the free will, once we have the tools to change our frequency and to change what laws apply to us. Okay, it doesn't matter what our twin sister's doing, our mother, father, our loved one, anything. We have the free will to change our individual frequency. And that's a deep level choice to go to deep level shifts to take ourselves into this higher frequency. The next definition is circumstance. The seemingly uncontrollable outward events that influence our decisions. Okay? We feel we are victims of circumstance. We feel we go into blame. We go into victim. And what we are bringing is that circumstance loves us more than we do. Circumstance is divine. This becomes one of our assumptions. So, do you want to do the next couple?
All right. Consciousness. Consciousness is something that scientists and psychologists and philosophers even have a hard time defining. But we've come up with something that seems to work pretty well, broke it down into 7 aspects. So as far as human I'm not talking about cosmic consciousness, the consciousness of the entire universe, which is so consciousness is the 7 aspects of being human over which we have choice. Awareness, assumption, attitude, attention, alignment, action, and allowing. Notice they all begin with the letter A. And these 7 A's actually determine our frequency, which in turn determines our reality. And the universe. The universe is all that is, both manifest and unmanifest, also known as God, Creator, Atman, and so on. We call it simply, because it's baggage-free, the conscious, loving universe.
So those are our definitions. So those set the stage for the assumptions. And here we go with the 10 assumptions.
Okay, so if you take those definitions of those particular words and use them as the basis for what we're about to say, it becomes a very coherent alternative reality.
And the kicker is that one must act accordingly. It doesn't help to think it, to say, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Okay, I'll take it as absolutely true for this exercise.
And you got to
But
walk it.
the problem is, the kicker is that you actually have to walk it. You have to do it, because otherwise, because of this frequency thing, your body isn't in the place where somebody else can, the loving universe can find you to give you this thing that's beyond what you can imagine. And so it's actually a timing, like a timing belt on a car. If you're not in sync, you're not going to be there. You're going to be out of sync with all the magic that wants to find you and give you more than you can imagine. Your soul's whole purpose of why it came here, and more than you can imagine. See, I live my life. I don't tell the universe what I want. Why would I do that? When the universe wants something more from me than I can imagine, I want that. So the secret and all of this, the law of attraction and all that stuff of tell the universe what you want, set your goals, and do it. That's antithetical to the way I live my life. Because I don't want my little pea brain telling the universe what it wants. I want what the universe wants for me. So, here are the 10 assumptions. And just as I said, going into this, it's just key to walk it. I let my son drop out of first grade and turned him over to the loving energies on the planet when he was 7 years old. I walk the walk. Okay? You gotta walk the walk. And Johnny Marlow's life has turned out to be a life of magic and walking the walk. You gotta do it.
So, the 10 assumptions. Number 1, we live in a conscious, loving universe. There is nothing but love. There is only love. Number 2, the universe loves us unconditionally. It gives us everything we ask for. 3, we create reality by the power of our consciousness. 4, our consciousness, also known as the 7 A's, just mentioned that, them, awareness, assumption, attitude, attention, alignment, action, and allowing determine our frequency and are our requests to the universe. I'll read one more and then you can finish it up. Free will, something a lot of people don't feel they have. Free will is an absolute law of the universe. We have the freedom to choose our frequency. We are masters of our own destiny.
Circumstance guides us on our journey to wholeness. See, often we feel that we don't have free will because circumstance has intervened and forced us on a path we never would have chosen. Well, that circumstance is taking you on the path your soul chose when it incarnated. But your mind and your conditioning has told you you want to go here, and your soul said it wanted to come in to go here. So circumstance, the loving energies on the planet, create a situation that take you here. And once we understand that, we can thank circumstance. We can thank those things in our lives that totally disrupted us and took us in another direction. But whether it's the death of a loved one, we have to look at the gift of the death of a loved one, because we know that they came on their soul's journey to wholeness and there's only love, and that you came on your soul's journey and that was such a gift to you to take you a next step into your soul's journey. So then the 7th assumption is there is only now, this precious present moment. Living trustingly in the now, we experience the true nature of the universe. Well, the now is the gateway to the trust frequency. If we're feeling guilty about the past, we're worried about our actions in the past, we're feeling guilty, we're blaming others, if we're anxious about the future, we're not in the now. And if I feel we're losing our memory. I don't know how many of you here are having memory issues. Well, that's bringing us into the now. The memory, if we can't remember what we did yesterday, and we can't remember what we're supposed to do tomorrow, where are we? We're in the now. This is our soul taking us to this higher level where we can get in the now, and that's the gateway to the trust frequency, because all you can do is act in the now and trust that everything is going to come out better than we could have ever imagined. Okay, number 8 is all of creation is one. Separation is a man-made illusion. We are the conscious, loving universe. So Martin Luther King referred to that, and we are coming to understand the oneness of all things, that we are all one consciousness. And that's what quantum science is really showing us, that at a quantum level, at the deepest level, that we are all one with all of the universe. And number 9 is humanity is on an evolutionary upward spiral leading inexorably to a higher reality, the trust frequency, heaven on earth. Because once we understand there's only love, that's all there can be, is the coming of heaven on earth and peace on earth. Every action has 2 purposes. One that serves this lower frequency, and one that serves all that is, the only thing there is, and that is love and the coming of peace on earth and heaven on earth. That's my reality anyway, and I'm sticking to it. The 10th one is the trust frequency is a real place of unfathomable joy, peace, and abundance that is freely available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. And Martin Luther King referred to this in his talk when he said, "I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together." He's saying, and what we say in our book is, when in the Christian religion they say, the Lord will move mountains for those who trust in his loving power. Well, guess what? When we move into the trust frequency, there are no mountains. Okay? The Lord hasn't moved any mountains. We have moved ourselves into a higher frequency. Okay? And this is what Martin Luther King is referring to. He says, with this faith, I go on. With this faith, I know that all of God's children will walk together in brotherhood. I know we will be free. And we're saying we will be free from the prisons of our own minds. These beliefs that we have, these erroneous assumptions about the nature of the universe are actually creating our own prison. And Wallace Black Elk used to say this all the time. We are prisoners of our own minds. So we're bringing this to you tonight to set you free, but to set us all free with a new set of assumptions that take us to a place where abundance, beauty, joy, oneness reigns. And this is what Martin Luther King was speaking about, and what John Lennon speaks about in Imagine. So we thought we might close with the song Imagine. Who would like to lead it? I've put the words here so we can all sing the song Imagine. Do you have anything more to say?
Barry would like to play it.
Barry would like to play it.
I think we should do it a cappella.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything in closing before we?
No, there's an awful lot. I would just say that if you take what you've just heard and really, really apply it in your life, the change is extraordinary. It is actually the pathway to an integrated life. And at the moment we tend to be divided beings. We tend to be schizophrenic beings. I mean, how many of us believe that we have higher selves and lower selves? Excuse me? You know, that's okay. This is what
There's
it
just
is.
one self,
Yeah.
but we've split it so we feel like
We've fragmented ourselves in extraordinary ways, and our fragmented society that we look out and see is a direct reflection of that. And that can change, but it takes something like this. I'm not saying this is the only way, but it is a way. It seems to be a very solid toolkit, if you will, or a set of steps that one can take to really change things from deep inside. And once things change from deep inside, everything outside changes. It's not the other way around.
change
No,
your
it's not.
assumptions and the world changes with you.
There you go.
So let's sing Imagine, and then let's gather around and have a chat, because we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, your experiences with it. And
And let me quickly ask, is there anybody in the room who really has some question or something they'd like to bring to this? I would imagine we're not the only people with these kinds of ideas.
but let's sing the song, and
Okay,
then
okay, but just to think about that, and then
sing
we
it.
can,
Yeah,
we
then
can
we'll
come around to that.
we'll do that.
No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace.
You may
You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one.
So, what we have here on this little sheet with this song is a prescription for peace. This prescription is, read the words to the song Imagine. Open your mind to the possibility that they are more than just the words of a lovely song, that perhaps they describe the true nature of things. Pierce through the illusion of fear, separation, and scarcity, and begin to live as though the world described in the song is real. Teach the children this is the world they are preparing for, and the one we all will bring to pass on earth.
Amen.
I hope-
Bravo.
I